All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Beyond Baroque. My name is Quentin Ring. I'm Beyond Baroque's Executive Director. Thank you. I am very glad today. The storm has passed. The sun has come out. The clouds have parted, all for an afternoon of poetry. This is a special reading for us with one of our very favorite literary organizations, Valley Contemporary SoCal Poets, and it's with a group of some of our very favorite poets as well. It's a joyous occasion to have VCP SoCal Poets with us this afternoon. This is, I think, the first in-person reading they've done since they were sort of revived by Jerry. So it's very fun to have everybody gathered here. It's also a little bit of a bittersweet occasion, as well as we are gathered to say farewell and thanks to VCP's Executive Director, Jerry Garcia, as he steps down after doing, please, yes, after doing an absolutely incredible job reviving VCP. So we're excited to give Jerry a fabulous send-off and to hear what comes next for VCP SoCal Poets. Before we get to that, however, I did want to begin by acknowledging our presence here on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism and genocidal practices. And as an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting indigenous writers, communities, and their art. I'd also like to say a few words about Beyond Baroque. I know many of you know us pretty well, but we are Los Angeles' oldest literary institution, founded in 1968 by George Jury Smith, which makes this year our 55th anniversary. Thank you. There's been floods, there's been pandemics, it's been a long journey. But through our programs, our community building, and mentoring of emerging poets, Beyond Baroque has shaped literature and the arts in Los Angeles, and well beyond Los Angeles as well in innumerable ways. It's provided a platform for writers and artists ranging from Wanda Coleman, Mike Kelly, and Bob Flanagan to Amanda Gorman and our longtime poet in residence, Will Alexander, as well as many of you here. In our 55th anniversary, we've got some incredible things planned, including a poetry film festival later in April. We have a gala that's going to come up in the fall. We'll bring back the Southern California Poetry Festival. We'll be commissioning some new writing. And there's been a good number of other things going on as well. More immediately, we have a few readings coming up, including just next week. We have a reading with Elizabeth Koyman, Marissa Aricia Gedney, Marilyn Montagna, and Carolina Rivera Escamilla. That's going to be very fun. It's next Friday. Come back for that. We also have a nonfiction workshop coming up with Janice Littlejohn. That should be a great workshop, so please do check that out. And check out our calendar for a whole great deal more. I should also say we do depend on the support of our community for all these things that we do. If you're not a member of Beyond Baroque, or if you used to be a member and you've lapsed, please do consider becoming a member. It's very helpful to us, especially in this, our 55th year. Starts as little as $60 for an individual membership. $80 is a dual membership. You can see Catherine in the bookstore about that. It helps keep these events free. When we do charge, you'll continue to get into the events for free. You get a discount on our paid workshops, get a discount on our bookshop, and a great deal more. So please, please, please do support us if you have the means to. So talking about Beyond Baroque's history, when we got started, there were very few literary spaces or organizations in Los Angeles. One of the things that's inspired me working here is to see how many organizations, how many spaces, how many communities have really sort of blossomed over the past 10, 20, 30, 40 years in Los Angeles. A number of the poets who are here this afternoon, have contributed directly to that. Ashaki, who just came in, it's helped found Women Who Submit, runs The Offing now. Rick Lupert runs Cobalt Poets. And there's just been an incredible amount of work done by the poets in the community. As a result, Los Angeles and poetry in general has become a much, much better place, a much richer place. And it's really, I think one person who really deserves a huge amount of credit for that is Jerry Garcia. Valley Contemporary Poets has been a very important part of the Los Angeles literary landscape for some time. Some years ago, it had sort of dissolved, and Jerry did all of us an immeasurable service, restarting it, getting it up and running, doing so, chiefly through the pandemic as well, which is a huge challenge. And so we really owe a huge debt of gratitude to Jerry. I'll also say that for those of us here at Beyond Baroque, we have an even more personal debt to him. Jerry's service runs even deeper than the work he's done with VCP SoCal Poets. We wouldn't be here at Beyond Baroque without Jerry. 13 years ago, the organization found itself in a very difficult place. No money, no director, and Jerry, as the vice president of the board, in tandem with some other folks in the audience, like Amelie Frank, our former executive director, Richard Modiano as well, really put it on the path to a much better, stronger place, which is where we find ourselves today. So really, I'm here to say thank you. Thank you to all the poets who have gathered here: Laurel Ann Bogen, Michael C. Ford, Rick Lupert, Amato, Beth Ruscio, Robert Krut, and Ashaki Jackson. Thank you to our wonderful staff working this event: Jimmy Vega, Eric Alberg, Catherine King, Yvonne Salinas as well, who couldn't be here. Thank you to the new directors taking over VCP SoCal Poets: Elizabeth Iannacci, Bryn Wickard, who I just met, James Maverick, aka James Everett Jones. But above all, thank you to Jerry Garcia for all the work that he's done. He's riding off, not into the sunset, he's going east, to the sunrise, to the desert. I hope he won't stay a stranger to Beyond Baroque and the poetry scene here. In addition to all his work, he's a wonderful poet. So we're just going to watch a little video really quickly, just sort of highlighting some of the work the VCP SoCal Poets has done over the past few years. So please, another round of applause for Jerry and VCP SoCal Poets. Let's go ahead and watch this video. Thanks so much.
I'm changing glasses so I can read, but I can't see you. So, thank you, Quentin, for that great introduction. And it's just been a joy and pleasure to be part of the Los Angeles poetry scene, and it's been a growing experience for me, and a million good things have happened to me while I've been part of it. So, thank you all for being here. What you saw was 16 readings that the VCP SoCal Poets have held over the last 2 years. we hosted 44 poets. Now it's time for me to hand off to Elizabeth Iannacci, the new executive director, and the co-directors, Bryn Wickard, James Everett Jones, and Teresa May Chuck, who cannot be with us today. Will you all stand up? Can the three of you stand up so everyone sees who you are? Elizabeth, Bryn, James. So I hope you get a chance to. They're all experienced in poetry and venue leasing, and Elizabeth is a former VCP from the old days, and so is Rick. Well, no, Rick's a reader. He's not one of the three. Never mind. That's why I write things down. I don't extemporize very well. So anyway, thank you for being here, and I hope you get to talk to our directors afterwards. Here's the lineup for today, and being that it's award season, I asked them all the question, if there was an Academy Award for poetry, what would you like to receive? So let's start off with Robert Krut. He would like to win the best visual effect, because it would mean that other people could see in his head as clearly as he does. Certainly his book, Let Me Trick Ghosts, weaves between surreal consciousness and concrete imagination. But let me tell you, Bob's a great guy to have a cup of coffee with also. I first met him at the East Hollywood's legendary Rhapsodomancy reading in the Good Luck Bar. I found out he was a teacher at UC Santa Barbara, where my daughter was going to at the time, but she didn't take his class, not because she wasn't interested in him, but she just didn't follow in Dad's footsteps in film or in writing. So. Next up will be Amato. Amato received 5 stars in consecutive runs at the Fringe Festival, Edinburgh, and has curated the live poetry and music event series Down Home in Los Angeles. She is a world-traveling poet, teacher, and filmmaker. Her answer to the question is, it's an honor to be nominated at all. However, she is a creative screenwriting, unique voices genre winner. She has taught filmmaking workshops throughout the world. She spent creative time in Berlin prior to coming home just in time for the pandemic, where she continues her work as a brilliant editor and writing coach, including for my latest book, Trumpets in the Sky. We have also collaborated on a number of multimedia projects over the years, and it's always been a joy to work with her. I met Ashaki Jackson at the unique, famous Idlewild poetry workshop, which no longer exists. That was back in the 2000s, and it's a special memory for me. Also, together we had a class that was led by Natasha Trethewey, who would soon become the Poet Laureate of the United States. Ashaki is publisher at Offing Online Magazine and co-founder of Women Who Submit, a community that supports women in submitting their literary works to top-tier journals. She's also a social psychologist, which is kind of what we need here in the poetry scene. I kid. Ashaki's poetry readings are powerful, addressing the realities of our times with a clear through line of history. She would like to win the award for Best Direction of a Sad Moment, which is appropriate because her poetry has very fine direction. Beth Ruscio, the Academy Award for Best Persona Poem written by a real poet who is also really acts like a real persona. She's an actress. She came to poetry as an accomplished stage and screen actor. It is amazing how she merged those skills with the written word. She's an award-winning poet destined for more praise. Beth is a thirsty poet. She imbibes all the poetry opportunities she can get, constantly learning and achieving. When I decided to revive the VCP, Beth was our first reader who encouraged me to keep it going. Rick Lupert would like to win the award for best use of intentional yet confusing line breaks. Not only is he witty and prolific, Rick is the heart of Southern California open mic poetry. He hosted the long-running Cobalt Cafe Tuesday night reading series where all poets could read in his generous open mic. Most of us know how quick and astute he is with encouraging comments about our poetry. With his skills as an impresario, online host, and website publisher, he has reached beyond Los Angeles, engaging poets from all over the world. And then we get to Michael C. Ford, the legendary. He is the legendary cool voice of poetry in Southern California. His current recordings of spoken word has the remaining Doors, guitars, Robbie Krieger, drummer John Desmore, and keyboardist Ray Manzarek before he passed away, playing backup to Ford's poetic wanderings. He gives so much as a teacher who can bring the rhythm and voice out of anyone. He already has Grammy nomination for spoken word recording, but he would like his Academy Award to be the sculpture of Jane Mansfield in the form of a hard plastic shampoo bottle manufactured and marketed in 1955, when I was 1 year old. And then we get to Laurel Ann Bogen. She is so iconic that I can't tell you anything you don't already know. She has won awards for her poetry and teaching skills. And she was capable of turning this divorcee and one-time grouchy film editor into a somewhat mannered person who writes poetry and curates events. She had encouraged many aspects of my life, including finding a new bride. Laurel Ann would like to have her Academy Award go to Laurie Scheck for the poem Dear. It is a poem that means a lot to her, so much so that she sent it to the actor Gene Wilder upon his death. I'm sorry, upon his wife's death. Now I'm going to leave the podium to make way for the visual effect of Robert Krut. Come aboard, Robert.
It's so nice to be here in Beyond Baroque. It's always wonderful to be here, but it's particularly nice to be here to celebrate Jerry. And he mentioned we met, I think it was 17 years ago. It was right after I moved to Los Angeles in East Hollywood at a reading series. And in a town where everybody says, we should get coffee sometime, and we never do. Jerry and I actually did, and it's been really meaningful, and he's been a great friend and supporter to everybody in this room. I bet everybody who reads knows if you have a reading and you look out, you're going to see Jerry there. So thank you for that for all these years. So thank you, Jerry. I thought it was only appropriate then to start with one of Jerry's poems, since I have the advantage of going first, to put his words out into the air before I go on for 7 minutes. So I want to just read the first poem in his wonderful book, Trumpets in the Sky. Trumpets in the Sky. Through scattered clouds, pink and thin, silver jets spark yearnings for adventure. Power lines scratch black strokes on cobalt. The full glide of a Cooper's hawk casts gray shadows before talons hook wire. A bluff side turns orange with twilight, lovers' hands silhouette in promise as the last remaining sun rays mute. Distant aircraft reflect the blaze of further western time zones. Late for home, sparrows bullet toward shelter. Incandescent fragments open across the valley. Neon signs glow on street travelers riding roadsters. Outlines of passion grow opaque against evening firmament. Diamond stars dress the blue-black curtain that introduces the obvious moon. That's Jerry. In keeping with the valley origins of the series, I picked out some poems that I can place at exact spots in the valley. And Jerry and I are pretty much in the same neighborhood. We're within maybe 2 miles of each other. So if anyone's familiar with the greater Studio City, Burbank, North Hollywood corridor, this was written looking at a street lamp on Pass Avenue in Burbank. You are the street, you are the sleep. Here is a steel seed. Place it in your chest before you go to sleep. Wake with filings across your eyelids. Each dream a capsule riding your bloodstream. Rest in a cocoon wrapped with steel wool. Let red lines mark your arms and maps. Go get a cup of coffee. Cough at the sink. Trace your blue light. Pull wire floss from your molars. Outside the window, someone in motion, etching a name into a street sign pole with a knife. There is no sound tonight. You will try to sleep again, the pipes in the house snapping their elbows. You attempt water. You settle for metal. This one, oh, thank you. The first lines of this were written at the gas station at Verdugo and Hollywood Way in Burbank, where Jerry and I have seen each other on the street many times. Scream into an open mouth. My torso is crowded. My body grew another heart to house my rage. An old man sells hand-rolled cigarettes in an abandoned groceries parking lot. A handwritten sign says, if you smoked, you'd be home now, until 2 cops pay a visit. My hands are packed houses. I woke up with 6 fingers on each. Every finger has 4 knuckles. At the gas station up the street, a guy walks up to each pump, licks every handle, and walks away. My organs have rerouted all mechanisms as bile turns to teardrops, saliva becomes blood. 2 people stand on the corner in front of my very home, screaming directly into each other's mouths, pausing, they gesture, yes, we know, don't you? My body grew an extra heart to house my rage. And then, thank you. To like a poetry series, we get applause after every poem. One more from this area, walking up Hollywood Way and down Clark, eastern into, deeper into Burbank. Accidental light. I'm walking after midnight. I'm walking before sunrise, investigating sirens heard echoing off the bones and the walls before I walked out the door. The only light comes from the convenience store on the corner that closed weeks ago. Their electricity's still on. The lottery sign glowing against the glass that makes the parking lot swell. I'm walking alongside shadows of no one, walking under the dome curve of a pupil, scanning for sound, but only finding a possum fighting a raccoon behind an RV. In the parking lot of the church with a sign lit that just says soon, a single sound calls out, a car doing donuts, its headlights off, the tires occasionally screaming against the pavement while it keeps circling. I'm walking long after midnight. The scars of the world are turning neon. I'm walking before sunrise, knocking on a stranger's door and running. Neighborly gestures. Pollution in the hardware, there's no escaping. The low-hanging clouds spell your name in wet cotton cursive and fill themselves with sludge, with oil, with a mass of slurry just waiting to release. And here we rush from storefront to storefront, trying to open a door, but no help arrives. In one, an old man locks his palms to the handle and sways back to block us out, and we are on the street, open, naked, unprepared for what is coming our way, this pension of suffering that is inevitable, but also so easily remedied as that man disappears behind the blur of his own breath, masking the glass. And then just one more, and thank you again, and Jerry, thank you for years of friendship. Repeat and again repeat together. Each moment of the day drops straight from the sky as a sliver dropping in a vertical line, lodging itself into our skin, revealing the pure darkness that hid behind the blue and cloudy mural above to leave thin, translucent spikes sticking out from our arms, our legs. And as the curtain above turns to black with the absence of time, we lie here, backs on grass, dew climbing up and over our thighs. If I remove your needles, will you remove mine? Take your time. We will pull each out, breathe on the spots left behind, and put them in a satchel. We will carry that bag every day, and every day gather up more, and every day wind up in darkness again. Thank you. Thank you. Please welcome E. Amato.
Hey. Y'all good? Yeah. We got a little sun. Oh, you're awfully quiet. Okay, well, I got a timer I'm going to start, and it might ding. I'm going to poem first and say nice things after. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, so I didn't really get the brief because, I'm doing Berlin poems. So there's no LA poems. I'm sorry. In the before times, I lived in Berlin. And this poem, the first poem that I am reading, was one that came out of our Berlin Writers Group and is in our Sundays book. Ways of Berlining. 31 days of 24-hour lifetimes. We don't recognize ourselves, but always know each other. August, a universe of reincarnations. Intimacy sometimes can stifle, but outside gazing sun disinfects, contact leeches, toxicity, chalkmark outlines, rotoscope, living bodies, boundaries blur without breach. This is a way of being very few can muster, possibly none master, but ride it. Ride it while it curls in, bringing cleansing salty waves. Ride it alone, in tandem, trio, quartet, virtuoso the lake trip, staccato the €1 falafel, pizzicato the open mic, adagio the till 5 a.m. conversation, allegory the sex, metaphor the lovers, change your name to yes, live like you mean it, smile like you know something, thrive on blackberries and conversation, share everything, because that's how there is always more. Laugh even when you are touching, love even when you are fighting, call strangers friend and recognize no enemies, yes. There are existences such in the bright light of vitamin D. We forego the creeping shadow of loom to happy, a better world into being, to enthusiasm, exploration as a lifestyle, to fearless our own enlightenment. Yes, we are curious foxes. We are beasts, require a transporter from Peeberg to Neukölln. We are privileged even when skint, have many tongues and hearts, but only one mind. We play for a living and work for fun. Curl around my tongue. Curl around my tongue. Curl around my tongue, why won't you? It's all I want, like shisha smoke, like language. This is called Birthday Wish, and it came out of a 30-30. I want a full moon, full and lickable. I can lick it, and it will taste like tiramisu. I want a tiramisu moon, a full tiramisu moon to lick, but it is vegan. I want a vegan tiramisu moon to lick, my tongue exploding with compassionate, luscious, flavorful sensation. A luscious, full moon illuminating compassionate sensation with flavor. I lick with tongue longer than Gene Simmons. If Gene Simmons was a god born on a mountain who came down to dwell with us with his extremely long, extra human tongue. Because the moon cannot forego her gravity to bring me tiramisu lusciousness. I must extend to her, but when I do, she will sing my own praises to the melody of amazing grace. I will tell her she tastes like tiramisu and healing. She will tell me I taste like divinity and suffering. I will ask her what divinity tastes like, and she will say, like the echoes of everything we once thought we were but gave away too soon. This is a poem looking out from my window balcony in Neukölln, from a window on Weserstrasse. 9 a.m. beer drinkers slink near the Späti. In the come and go of it all, they remain as if loitering on a time clock. Climate change sun's shiny knife and betrayed lover's hand pierces plants green, drinking long-forgotten golden muse into cells. Aloe will come from this. There is always a bike, a woman on a balcony beating a rug or shaking out a wet sheet. Often, 3 girls laugh. Frequently, a couple in English, her native, his not. But there is a little girl, a daddy, laugh, smile, hug, pick up, a mommy, walks back to complete this embrace. Many things happen on this block. Last night, 2 women walking drunk, one pulled down panties, squatted in the bike lane, pissed. But love? Love doesn't protrude all that much in the day of things. A reminder, it isn't all give up, isn't all worn out. We might still have each other. Okay, this poem is about the U-Bahn, which is the train system in Berlin. Monday, U8. A woman chases after her son, a boy maybe 13. She admonishes him as he propels himself toward a stranger, a man in his 40s who he hugs. She is apologizing to the stranger who is saying, no, it's fine, really fine. And the boy, her son, she is prying him off, and the boy does not understand. The man is a stranger, and we do not just go around hugging strangers on the U8 in the middle of the day or maybe any other time. But the boy has a different set of rules, and the mama, she wants to keep her son inside everyone's rules. But the man is kind, and I think she has her hands full. That is a lot of work, mothering like that. And the man in front of me is missing a part of his index finger. He is a builder for sure. He has plaster dust on his clothes and carries building materials. And the woman across from me has one of those rolling walkers with a little basket to carry things. And this is just one stop on the U8. I'm only going one stop, and these are the stories. And see, life is hard for everyone. You just don't always see it. But today it is on display, and I decide not to worry so weary about my own shit. There isn't really enough time for talking or another poem, so. Another poem? Yeah. All right, y'all, but then I have to talk really fast. Okay. This poem was actually written here, but it's about living there. Sauerkirsch. To make 5 for $1 at the Echo Park Farmers Market, I add a sour cherry honey stick. Sour cherry, I think of you. Sour cherry, honey. Sour cherry, so Berlin, curative but tart, no matter sugar, no matter marinated in honey, medicinal, tangy, cloying, syrupy, embossed on a city, a sauna, a relationship. On Tuesdays, we go to the ancient one you found when the pool was closed. We walk down into the stone cavern. The regulars ignore us now. As we go from sauna to steam to cold, always we pay at the end. Manchmal orders Sauerkirschsaft at the bar. It comes in a pint glass. We take turns gulping. We walk home to yours and argument about dinner unless there is already a plan. It is late, we are hungry but limp, our weeknights a blanket of sameness. Eat, wash dishes, you smoke, set up the screen, we watch, eat chocolate, eventually sleep. She does not have change for my 20. I say I will come back. She says next week. I say, no, when I get change. She says, no, take them. This is how I know it is not Berlin. I pay for some squash and berries, bring her $1. She smiles, also not Berlin. I was going to save the sour cherry honey for last. Instead, I choose it first and add to dandelion tea, dandelion bitter but healing, Sauerkirsch honey swirling inside the brew. Dandelion and sour cherry fight. Neither wins, neither gives in. It is the honey that loses. Told you. Its sweetness to the tart bitter, but possibly not its magic. I drink the cleansing tea with the echo of sour cherry. Try not to think about the sauna. Berlin Sekt with frozen Sauerkirsch. All the moments, intimacies left behind on the altar of saving my own life. All right. I'm going to go over like 35 seconds, and I apologize, to say thank you, VCP, thank you, new directors, thank you, 3 Elizabeths in the room, and Shoe Game on these poet people. Jerry, we have been friends a long time. We have been creative collaborators. We have been colleagues. You've been my boss, and occasionally my client. And I appreciate so much your continued support of everyone and me and your being there. And I had so many more things to say, but now I can't think of them. And this is really what I want to say. A lot of people don't get braver as they get older, right? In fact, they get quite the opposite. But your work, your creativity, and your life are becoming braver and braver, and I think that's a really courageous act, and I appreciate it. I salute you. Thank you. The next poet is Fire, so please welcome to the stage Ashaki Jackson.
I'm so grateful to be here. I'm going to leave my mask on. Don't panic. Don't panic. I'm going to start with my Jerry talk, pep talk. Someone asked me where I met Jerry, and I could not remember until you said it today. I've been in the county for 20 years, in LA City for 15 years, and you've just always been there. If someone says Jerry, there's only one to me, and that's you. And it feels nice to know that you are omnipresent in the literary landscape, and that you will still be here. Your efforts, your support, your engagement will continue. I mean, you're visiting, right? You're coming back? Cool. But also, in the people you have touched, the people you've given space to read their work. You are an amplifier, you are a friend, and I'm so jealous that you get to go to a new space with new poets, with housing that's affordable, and to maybe do this all over again out there. So I'm jealous of the people who you will meet out yonder. Thank you for always keeping me in mind for these readings. It's such a blessing to know you. So thank you, Jerry. You all can come in and sit. Come in, stretch out. I'm about to get real sad. Come in. So I'm going to read some drafty work. Jerry has supported my early pieces. These are memories from 2020. I work in healthcare, so you're going to hear some hospital talk. I'm going to read them consecutively, so feel free to hold your applause and not your tears. I'm just going to title them the days that I wrote about them this year. January 1st, 2023. We return to our cities forgetful and with distrust in our lungs. Loss rustled through drooping trees not pruned since before the quiet years. Survivors thawed a bit, but remained distant. A woman in the emergency room howled, bursting with labor pains from a pregnancy she lost months prior. Ghosts stole the air and the empty spaces in our bodies made by mourning. I remember that our minds weren't right. January 2nd. That first summer, 3 hurricanes sliced the town like a water saw, opening the ground to its oily bone. All the local money redirected to the hospitals blew away with families' roofs. Only half the townspeople wore masks to avoid the virus. The others gulped for air as the bayou surged. At the veterans' home, 4 aides each grabbed the corner of a fitted sheet to move the heaviest patient from their bed onto the hallway floor, while the sky ate the world. Buildings bowed. The church bell lost count in the wind. January 3rd. The quiet years were full of excess. Birds sang in cursive without losing their breath. We emptied store shelves of unreasonable things, like candy and produce that would wilt within the week. We binged series and death counts. A woman delivered a fetus in 2 pieces. She and her husband asked nurses to gather the parts, to swaddle them so that they could cradle what they made while saying goodbye. And the nurses did, because they knew what it was to desire wholeness. January 4th. The sky was the cleanest it had ever been in years. We could see clear up to God, but we mostly stayed inside until the air was safe. Coyotes confidently roamed neighborhoods. Roosters said nothing. The same ambulance lurked on our street without sirens every few nights and left with something broken. A veteran shouting at his memories. A battered wife. Bodies. Its lights strobed through the blinds, announcing its arrival. When the street was dark, we were brave. We peeked out the window to see Mars's faraway red glow, or to count the dead stars. January 5th. For the first time in a very long time, we all ate together. We shared recipes through screens, talked about our days, and how biblical it was that black bananas could become loaves. We made rituals of tracking the news, waiting to hear when the world would resume. At the hospital, triage spilled into parking lots. Refrigerated trucks took turns circling and parking near the morgue. The blood of a nurse, far past her menstruation years, turned on like a dripping faucet for 360 days. It was the strangest thing. My uterus refused to function correctly. Everything leaving in their ways, each day a repast. January 6th. Australia burned from center to shore during the first quiet year. Hurricanes on all hemispheres drowned the living and unearthed the dead. Without a visible sky, without ground, we only understood time by strikes. East of Vermont Avenue, bored men launched M80s in the pit of night. Random nights, breaking all peace. We wore earplugs and begged for rest. This is how we track time, the manufactured sound of war. January 7th. During the softer nights, we were desperate for warmth and certainty. We self-soothed, bought brown liquors for their heat, took deep, uninterrupted breaths on our balconies, or howled to the lonely animals we were slowly becoming. Up north, in the seam between Canada and the States, mariners gathered irreverently on the mirrored waters, their laughter buoyant like loon hoots. We huddled in the virus's long darkness with our rituals and our compasses going nowhere. January 9th. At 7 p.m., we banged our pots and pans. A raucous ovation for doctors and nurses we threatened with coughs in the ER. We prayed for their durability, for their commitment to our survival, though we could not see their double-masked faces. On the East Coast, a UFO brought traffic to a halt. Witnesses stepped out of their cars, holding their breath as they studied their camera phones for good video. They say the object hovered a long moment, then left in an instant, while the people lingered in their unscheduled quarantine freedom, feeling untethered, looking for otherworldly escape. January 9th. We received instruction not to touch each other and kept our distance. We over-sanitized our hands, drying them until they cracked. Vodka companies pivoted to hygiene, and we cleaned our bodies like a religious rite. Churches closed for in-person worship. We changed our gods to what we could still hold, using our homes like rosaries. We smoothed our bedding. Amen. We made bread. Amen. We stirred the bathwater. Amen. We touched our reflections in bathroom mirrors. Amen. January 11th. And there are 4 more of these. In the quiet years, death work moved slowly. Carefully stacked bodies waited in their vapors for goodbyes. There were rules for ceremonies. No more than 5 people in the parlor seated far enough to feel estranged, or no more than 25 people gathered outdoors. In the Salish Sea, an orca who wore her stillborn like a crown for 17 days delivered a new calf. Yet we hoarded her long grief and carried her spectacle into our dusty chapels. We remembered how, in her exhaustion, she would let the calf slide into the sea. Members of her pod took turns holding her weight, dove under, and lifted her grief again and again. January 13th. Sometimes the citywide curfew didn't match the county curfew. We made good use of the in-between, reclaiming our independence by driving back roads or quietly lingering with friends in the open air. In maternity wards, physicians delivered infants while wearing garbage bags secured with duct tape. New mothers scrambled for control of their bodies and their fates in overrun hospitals by naming children after their coping strategies. Freeman, Joy, Ocean, Heaven, Hennessy. January 14th. The cicadas arrived when we were exhausted from other plagues. Their male congregation sang from the ribs, vibrating the evenings open. We pretended to sleep to their chorus, but fear. In the yawn, couples passed the time in deep study of themselves. They wore each other, responded to loneliness with warm bodies. They pressed each other into new flesh, a generation of precarity. And the last one I'll share, because there are so many memories. January 15th. We were desperate magicians, turned store aisles into wastelands, and turned pennies into gallons of dollar store bleach. We conjured our grandparents' frugality and restored meaning in our faiths, unpacking gods from our storage bins. Each hour, hospital staff rushed to cars in the emergency room bay. A grandson was mid-prayer when he arrived. His grandmother, already with her God, in the passenger seat. We studied his wails, a type of imperfect prayer for despair. So we also cried. Thank you. Please welcome to the podium, please let me get this right, Beth Ruscio.
Very good. I am in the exact middle. I am the hump day of this lineup. So I brought a variety, thinking I would, be inspired, and now I'm going to read this poem because of, and I'm saving this hat for my last poem, which is a request from Jerry Garcia. You'll see why I'm reading this poem. As much the hours as the crosses. Tonight, waiting at a long red light, I watch a man on the median fold in half his broke plus anything will help cardboard sign and shove it down the back of his loose jeans, a grimy brace which pulls his shoulders to attention, militarily picks up his chin. That's okay. Bye. Militarily picks up his chin. Later, that dream, that nightmare, where my legs don't work, and the one where Giacometti thin neighbors come out onto their front stoops and puff up like sails. Their cotton lawn shirts have Peter Pan collars, the rounded collars of my home ec final. A girl I knew sewed through her index finger just to get out of redoing her French seams. In the morning, Dad will call, sounding far off, as if a spaceship took him in his sleep, and he's only just been beamed back to bed. Glad to see the sun come up, he'll say. Here's your mother. In the sweltering afternoon, making sherbet with my niece from You Pick Bing cherries. First batch cooks up tasting like the pan, the long simmered Christmas cassoulet, and instantly, and once again, the air thickens, the roar of that winter when the skies opened up like punishment, hard rain fogging up all the windows in low winter light, an aquarium of drowned sound. Then the expectant appetites of the last guests, my dad, hungering still to be caught up in any old jubilation, cheering the possibility the house slides off its foundation, making this kitchen an island we never leave, and none of us, not even this poem, ends. Because it's the anniversary of the Ukrainian invasion, and I started to just work on poems that I started calling the ghost light poems. The ghost light in a theater is the one light that's left on when everybody leaves. It's kind of a superstition, but also it's a little bit of hope inside of a dark space. So these poems take place in the Mariupol Theater, in the basement of the Mariupol Theater. And here's one of them. And it has this epigraph from Adrian Rich. I know you are reading this, there where you have landed, stripped as you are. Stasis. In the dim light, the seamstress with a scissors tattoo on her left forearm bends to yellow fabric. Radiance shines up into her glasses like wheat fields. Her eyebrows meet in solemn concentration as she adds whimsy to the garment. At the corners of her mouth, the threat of upturn. Here, a portrait collar. Here, a row of unpartnered button loops with embroidered knots, bits of lace she'd caught in her hands, grasping at belongings as she rushed to leave her life for this theater basement. Her handwork would be a creation constructed of numbing afternoons by frozen fingers, periodically thawing to pins and needles. Enough lace for half a collar, half a life, stalled like a weather system over water without release, swollen and blunted, dry-eyed, but sighing. Yes, all the time now, like Chekhov's comic character Masha. I'm in mourning for my life. Must all of it taste bitter? Next to her, the child sings to her dolly, who wears an apron with pockets for her own baby dolls. She makes it up, a kind of lullaby, what they'll do when they are back in the sun, like before all this started, keeping her voice small, then smaller, losing the battle with the bombing above as the room turns towards her. I read this poem from my book the first time I read this poem was in this room many years ago, and Brendan Constantine was in the house, and I think you were too, Elizabeth. Correcting for Death. Oh, and this is a persona poem. This is the one I want to win the Academy Award for, so. Correcting for Death. I play this character, Dead Judith, on the call sheet, with a paint gun, a makeup specialist in effects, sprays a dead person's face on my face, steady, with brushes made of a single eyelash. Hand-mixed color concoctions are applied, correcting for death. Stria, for coagulation under the skin. The mottled freckling of an overripe peach for blood splash. A sculpted bullet hole in my temple. An exit wound weeping syrup out of my cheek. Grips remove the rear view mirror from the 3/4-ton pickup where I am slaughtered, not for my sake, for the camera angle. I'm in an onion field. Gore drips off the shattered passenger side window. Brains puddle on the Naugahyde seat. Lunch isn't for hours. We'll be on this shot forever. And that's just what it's like on a set. We have each other to fear in a city ruled jointly by doves and crows. With quick, who is the first poet? This takes place in Reseda. This is another valley poet. There you go. With quick, bright clucks, the neighbor's 2 chickens have made their way up into the loquat tree to watch. It's another street takeover in Reseda. The vroom vroom of high velocity interrupted by metallic screeches coming to violent halts. Babs, the strawberry chirper, and Smokey, whose deep-voiced color stories striped feathers in black and white. A couple of neighbor ladies come by. The older one eyes the hens, holds up 2 fingers. 2 soups, she crows. Show's just getting started. Thunderbirds shriek and jerk their non-virtual video game. No mercy here. They lay down rubber in dark, tarry street hickeys. Enter the block's serial killer cat, Foster. That's a writhing lizard lazily clamped in his fat cat mouth. Silently, his latest victims lay in the tall alley weeds 3 baby possums gnawed up like chew toys. Even the persecuted raven swoops in, all healed up from Foster's last attack. The big black bird surfing car exhaust, locked, loaded, and landing heavy from his higher perch. He surveys payback, like everyone else on the streets today. The intersection of Balcom and Blythe could be Talakovka and Lanika, as Nastasia walks her pug dog and wears her soft shoes so as not to draw attention, and in a low-pitched whisper, "Come on, little pup, let's not get killed trying to pee." This is because Jerry and I share a past in the film business. He'll recognize this poem. And then I'm going to read my last poem before Jerry. Show goes on. This is for my dad, Al Ruscio. My dad was a character actor whose career spanned the entire history of television, starting with The Untouchables and Playhouse 90, and all the way to playing one of the elders in, what the hell's that show called? It'll come to me. Show goes on. Do I look like a judge? Dad crosses his arms, gives me his left profile. I peel off the Kleenex from his chin. The nick stopped bleeding. He's on such a high dose of blood thinners. And the walk across the whole Warner Brothers lot is a test. We pass. Costumed cops, horsing around, dueling with red licorice whips. What are you, wise guys? Dad parries in his best 3-piece suit, sweat clean through. And as if down a gangplank, he walks into casting, affecting a halting gait, buying time. His "hello, darling," once deployed to debonair effect, except today, he's rushing through the lines, voice climbing an octave, heart pumping, a brakeless bicycle down Eldred Street. Then whoosh out the door, they hustle him, the hollow kudos fade, faint praise escorting us into the suffocating heat. A touch of sandpaper roughs up his melodic voice. Let's sit. He can't stand. And everything around us is pretend. A grassy New England park, a band shell. We sit on a bench shaped like a whale, looking out, both audience and on display. There is the church, there. The steeple. Open the door. See, it's an exterior set. It's a white wall propped up on wooden elbows. That was my dad's last audition. Okay, so this is by request. And let me just say, I met Jerry and I wrote about it in the foreword of his book, so I really recommend you buy his book, read his poems, and read my foreword. But let me give you the Cliff Notes version. We met in Laurel Ann's workshop, and we would be in the workshop, which was on the dark side of the apartment building, and so it was always kind of like a boudoir in there. It was like red light, and we'd be all hovered over our poetry, and it happened in the morning, and when we come out, it'd be like bright sunshine. And we would stand outside and talk about the poems that we had done that day for almost as long as the workshop, for like 3 more hours. And we we did that over and over again, and then we would go to poetry readings together and sit next to each other, and then stay after those and talk about those poems. And so it's a long conversation with Jerry. I don't like the idea that this has got some sort of funereal tone. You know, you're still living, and you're going to be just like down the street. And you're going to come back. I'm going to make you come back to hear people's readings, mine and other people's. So this is for Jerry, and because of that, I have to wear this hat of matchbooks, phone booths, and the loss of Nicodels. In those days, excuse me, I need to get a drink if I'm going to talk about Nicodels. In those days, when somebody famous yanked open the bar's side door off Melrose, spilling a rectangle of sunny rebuke on us unknowns, ripening in Nicodel's night for day ambience, we looked up without looking up, slitting our eyes to the light. We were dark-clothed theater rats, rehearsing all hours on our wageless farce, our German expressionism, all our daylight eaten, not from around here, pale, funhouse sweaty, with thirst to burn, but seated in a place like Nicodel's, in old Hollywood, the slightly seedy side, down from local television station KCAL, and spooned by the back lot of Paramount Studios in the hierarchy of regulars. We had rank. We wanted for nothing Nicodel's, with a name like Loose Change, where dream makers on martini lunches and newscasters from the desert to the sea to all of Southern California, like Jerry Dunphy, could tuck into one of the bar's red leather booths and dine in the cocktail atmosphere, where here's mud in your eye nobodies could have a completely appointed experience, exchanging phone numbers inside midnight blue matchbooks that boasted of air conditioning, a smoky topaz back mirror bar, Caesar salads tossed tableside, shoestring potatoes, salty hot, dark wood, dark corners, 15 different bourbons. Back when drinking in the daytime was the mark of a vivid, lush life. When you could grab matchbooks by the handful next to the cigarette machine on the way to the phone booth, acting like you had somebody who loved you, dying for a call. That's for you, Jerry. And now it's my honor and privilege to introduce the debonair and suave Rick Lupert.
Thank you, Beth. You are the ghost light in the room. I first met the VCP in 1995 when it showed up to the Cobalt Cafe poetry reading. To give you a sense of the era, Brendan Constantine wasn't even bald yet. It's like they came over on the Mayflower. Brendan Constantine had hair, then he didn't. Those are the tent poles, tent posts, the things that mark time. That began a long relationship with the Valley Contemporary Poets, which still exists today thanks to our collaboration with the virtual Cobalt Poetry series. Jerry, where are you? Because I want to look at you. Oh, there you are. There's lights. When the VCP fizzled out a few years ago, I can't tell you how grateful I am that you did the work to start it up again, to create it anew. I know the many people who started the VCP, who who took care of it for many years before you came along are appreciative of that. And I know that going forward, everyone who will benefit from it, like all of us today, are appreciative of it as well. When you do a thing, it's great. When you do a thing that's able to last beyond you doing it, that's really great. So thank you very much. This poem is called What the Chinese Spy Balloon Saw. A wayward seagull, the militias of North Dakota, all the lost things, including your car keys, the remote control, Amelia Earhart, America in all its grandeur, including Mount Rushmore, which I have yet to see, lucky Chinese spy balloon. 2 kids in a field of sunflowers hoping they don't get caught. The discarded second spaces after periods from the typewriter era. Acres of books about biorhythms. Remember biorhythms? The Chinese spy balloon does. Your thinning hair. Who am I kidding? My thinning hair. Saddam Hussein's backup hole. One of John Travolta's faces, my uncle on another one of his benders, Janet Jackson's Super Bowl nipple, it's still out there. People shouting obscenities thinking no one's watching, the funk, the jam, the Burning Man, the ladies of the night, that vibe we miss, the Watusi, the realization it always wanted to be a Chinese water balloon, where all the time went, natives aiming their guns in the air, but not its mother. It's still looking for its mother. This is a poem from this book of poems that I wrote in Hawaii last summer, or 2 summers ago. The book is called I Am Not Writing a Book of Poems in Hawaii. So if you were wondering whether or not you could trust me, now you know. This is called The Olympics Wake Me Up This Morning. The Olympics wake me up this morning. They came to my hotel room and did gymnastics on the bed. I don't know who gave them a key. I recognize the announcer's voice from when he was on the TV. It was a thrill, to say the least. Tickets are usually so hard to get. Addie heard and rushed in. She apologized for the commotion, as if the Olympics are her fault. Jude stayed in the other room, clearing his throat. It was a little early for me, as I usually don't have the Olympics over before coffee, and they didn't want any. So I faced them towards the window and went to take a shower. I write a poem for the Torah portion every week, and I make a point of reading that week's poem when I do a reading, because I know so many of us just don't have the time to get to Torah study. So the first set of these was collected in this book called God Wrestler. This is the poem for this week's Torah portion. My mother was a Cohen, and so, as far as I know, I'm descended from Aaron and have priest running through my veins. Maybe brains too, I don't know. It was an on-the-fly edit. After reading the description of what they had to wear, I'm not sure how long I would have lasted in the job. I don't own a tie. I remember leaving a job at a new organization shortly after they announced everyone would have to wear a uniform. When my wife asks what I'm going to wear to an event of some kind, I mumble something about the sky and then get out of that conversation as fast as I can. I suspect it may be a front. I'm maddeningly specific about how I want my t-shirts to fit. Addie begs that I buy a second pair of jeans so that way when the ones I wear every day, all day, forever wear out, there won't be a crisis of faith. And the stones, silk screened on my shirts, Star Wars, Amtrak, Zeppelin, Lead, and the Beastie Boys, all three nice Jewish boys. They decorate my breastplate of judgment like tribes. I'm the high priest of my own special world. One more thing, God is a meat eater, asks for 2 lambs a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, promises to dwell amongst us. Maybe this is why I have trouble finding them. I'm a vegetarian. I don't know if the Holy One would like vegan lamb samosas, but I'd like to find out. This poem is also from my book. I am not writing a book of poems in Hawaii. We spent our last day on a resort pretty much doing nothing. This poem is called Lazy River. 1. I let Jude do all the work in the lazy river because lazy river. 2. We pass several empty tubes in the lazy river. Some people didn't make it. 3. I want to take the lazy river back to California, but not today. And finally, this is a brand new poem. I wrote it yesterday. It's called For the Real Jerry Garcia.
Yes.
You know this one already, but is that okay? As the story goes, the famous musician Jerry Garcia would have to fend off would-be fans on the regular by saying, "No, I'm not the poet." Before he would take the stage in front of hundreds of thousands of fans, most of whom were shouting, "We want spoken word mixed with jazz, please." That's why all the Grateful Dead fans took to alternate forms of consciousness to distract themselves from their inevitable disappointment. When that one died, it got simpler. It was all about the words. I lost my place. There it is. Reading after reading, flyer after flyer, email after email, Facebook event after Facebook event, elevating voices, known and unknown to lucky, eager ears. Jerry kissed a dead nonprofit on the lips and brought it back to life. And now, as he leaves the building, the neighborhood, the city, and my God, they're talking about blizzards in the desert, who can blame him? We're reminded you can't leave the internet. No matter where you decide to plop down your sunset hat, we expect to still see your face, to still see the words you've picked and how you've touched them against each other. Jerry Garcia, not dead. These are the trumpets in our grateful ears. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Jerry. When the world falls apart and all that's left is crumpled buildings, whether that's in 100 years or maybe next week, standing next to Keith Richard will be the only other survivor of all of this, our next reader, Michael C. Ford.
When Eve Branstein did a Poetry in Motion program here, I had to follow Carrie White, reading from her novel. And Today, I get to follow Rick Lupert. Jerry, thank you again for providing me with yet another challenge. I promise you guys I'm going to be practically adequate. Now, I'm not going to be completely adequate, but I'm going to come close. And I'll tell you how it's going to work today, gang. I'm going to read 4 pages from 4 different published documents. And this first one is from a 2017 book called Women Under the Influence. It recalls the movie goddess archetypal figure Rita Hayworth after she'd been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I'm lamenting her decline and disappearance. I call this Rita Hayworth has been declared mentally incompetent. I know what it must be like, movie star, waking up with the fear every other morning. It was even more difficult having never in your stunning career been able to play one of those Hemingway women, at once heroic, invulnerable. For you, it was proving only angels have wings. And now you try to spread your own 30 years later in your dementia. When you were a lady from Shanghai, you took the wheel from Orson Welles, and now you wish it were only a lame husband trying to drive you crazy, I bet. Not so long ago and far away, you were a cover girl whose maybe fortunes were concealed in oysters nightly served by the great character treasure Edward Brophy off Broadway. Gary Cooper might have come to Cordura trying to envision you as Earth Mother of the battlefront, but I was matriculating into continuation school and taking Technicolor trips to nowhere. I loved you best as Sadie Thompson, bringing the Reverend to his knees better than Vespers. Now I love whatever I'm capable of projecting beyond all you once projected on a wall of fantastic semantic subterfuge. I believe I love you beyond beauty because your psychiatric doctors have authorized my feelings for you now. I realize, Rita, I've probably always loved you for your mind. I know you guys are very polite and you like to applaud after each recitation. I'm going to ask you to save the wear and tear on the palms of your hands, resist that impulse until I finish, and then you can respond with whatever you think I deserve. This is from a chapbook of poems I wrote about in New York City. I met the legendary jazz singer Anita O'Day, and when she left the planet, I composed this memoriam. The title is A Songbird's Last Flight, after the music of Anita O'Day. It's a downstairs pub club scene off Times Square. There's this altitude inside. One female vocal on high, this chirp, who treats her voice like an alto flute. It is the same delicate, breezy, cool jump tune, juke joint thing. But ooh, ya coo, woo, waff, and wail. So if all the seasons of spring could sing, they'd sound like her thumb-popping bebop groove, Vodo Day, then maybe even Doris Day. We don't mean the latter day, but 1947 big band brightness. Whenever Dee Dee built the bridge on Sentimental Journey, she was totally into a flat 5 ending by Les Brown's Band of Renown into the very last out chorus, into the last out chorus. However, Anita's vocal artistry has always been canceling all commercial tickets to ride. Her ultra-luminous style is so memorial. She would have refused to read the recipe on any media menu advertising some silly, ludicrous, delusional, overcooked chick singer falling out of her designer jeans on American Idol. Oh yeah, we do have that music too, don't we? This is from a book I wrote. It was a fundraiser for Lockwood Animal Rescue people in Fraser Park, and all the money goes to that, supporting the rescue of coyotes and wolves and endangered birds. I wrote this on the snowy bank of the South Fork of the Yuba River, located above Sacramento in Auburn, California. And it goes exactly like this. First of all, there's this wind, acrid beast, devouring small animals of clouds. The Yuba River's charge is like Switzerland exploding. Speak to me with Auburn snowstorm silence, because those who wanted once to hold Kenneth Patchen's poem, Origin of Baseball, so your hands may remember sliding face first into home plate and other games you just might lose if you're not more careful. Yet now, your voice is quiet, as this cement mixer mist in winter is sometimes, and you look at what's grinding off a gall of mauled slush. It is perhaps in some way a very different sort of an underworld mood swing, where too many were spitting and swearing at a God nobody prays to. Well, Jerry, after hosting 114 years of, it feels like that sometimes, of the VCP, you are moving to Southern California's lower desert. Travel well, my brother. You shall be missed. And this is my last blast. I was friends with members of a notorious quartet. I've known them since their founding year in 1965 at the UCLA School of Cinema Arts. And this is dedicated to one of my musical brothers, James Douglas Morrison. And I thank you all for your kind attention. And this is the message. Morrison, I'm with you at Devonshire Downs in 1967, where you're just beginning to feel like a stranger, where you imitate the warship shadow of your father, where you are witnessing some dreadful conspiracies, where the audience is planning to murder your poetry, where you are an undercover poet for the CIA, where you see lightning bolts crackling over the movie theater rooftop of an about-to-be-demolished vintage marquee, where you drink lemonade and vodka from Parkway brim hats worn by stunning female mannequins, where you are competing with Francis Ford Coppola in the monopoly of Mandeville Canyon. That really happened. Where you are in Vietnam grieving over a malevolent war based on greed capitalism, where you would rather be on a Beverly Hills tennis court playing a terrifying match against the ghosts of social justice, where you see yourself in a UCLA music room playing the paranoid piano as though you realize that most universities are existential madhouses, where you want to hug and kiss the American flag in a rare moment of patriotic nostalgia, where the coffin of your brain will no longer accommodate the worms of your dreams, where you are no doubt laughing at this hideous humor, where you finally wake up in Paris from a 20th century coma, dying from an overdose of police, where you refuse to accept your commercial crucifixion on a Calvary Hill of Hollywood hysterical idolatry, where you will resurrect yourself in a shower of angels under heavy darkness in the city of light. Thank you very much. You know her, you love her, you can't live without her. Please welcome Miss Laurel Ann Bogen.
Wow. What an afternoon. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for Jerry, just because he is. So I'm going to read some new poems and some not so new poems, and I will start with one entitled, it's a poem for a friend of mine named Doug Knott, and it's called Hollywood Hills Noir, and I had written this quite a few years ago, but it's still relevant, I think. Hollywood Hills Noir. Aberration of weather studs the slow-eyed city where change gels in ripples after due process. I could go deeper, pry open the locked vault below. Combustible fossils bubble in tar and petroleum beneath Wilshire Boulevard. The jacaranda's excuse me. Let me start from the beginning. Anyway, I miss him. He was an old friend for a long time. Hollywood Hills Noir. Aberration of weather studs the slow-eyed city where change gels in ripples after due process. I could go deeper, pry open the locked vault below. Combustible fossils bubble in tar and petroleum beneath Wilshire Boulevard. The jacaranda's roots divide the house. Los Angeles erupts in violet blossoms. Each spring, the profusion is uncontained by stucco. Nature needs tending, of course. Every few years, the plates shift, the photogenic councilman takes a fall, and somebody takes the devil herself, cloaked in the need to be seen in filtered light, latticed with fault lines and an underground whirlpool as profligate as oil. Thank you. Some of you may have remembered a person named Poor Richard's Almanac. This is a brand new poem. First time I read it in an audience. It's called Poor Laurel's Almanac. I come from scoops of chocolate stars piled in barrels alongside the saltwater taffy and sugar babies, my reward for not complaining behind my mother on errands to Coulter's department store, the May Company, and Sears. Not a word, I said to myself, but willed my Laurel Ann secret power on the scenario until maybe just a bit more, I heard her say. The man behind the counter wrapped up in the bags. My mother checked her watch, spritzes blue grass, and applies coral lipstick flawlessly without looking at her mirror. I come from tap dance classes, bargain because flackery, clack, clack, suited me better than Swan Lake. I come from playing checkers with my grandmother after school, the Natural History Museum and its saber-toothed tiger dioramas, tar pits everywhere, palm trees and the slant murmur of danger. I come from spectacle. I come from excess. I come from Ponyland because every little girl should have one. I am the perfect accessory. I come from eau de mama, more stink than cologne. Yes, I did have a pony when I was a little girl, by the way. And that pony was so mean that we couldn't take it on right. So my dad would hook it up to he had to hook it up to he had to have it hooked up. My dad drove it, and my brother and I sat on other sides. And this is called In the Place, but Not of It. Within the silence of the past, but not of memory, desire. I call out, speak to me, and wait in the silence for more silence. No echo, but palpable darkness surrounds me with webs hidden from sight. Part of this place, but not of it. The distinct pinprick of transfigured light narrows through caves of my own making. There is no happiness in this. Unaware of self, let go the wounded self. One of my poetry heroes is Stanley Kunitz, because when he died a little bit after his 100th birthday, he was writing the best poetry of his life. And that's what I aim to do. I wish and I hope that I will have his writing my best poetry as the years go on. The poem in this poem is, the title of the poem is taken from a line of his poems, and it's called How Shall the Heart Be Reconciled? I could say, perfect your needlepoint, attach, stitch and focus, focus and stitch, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. I am much more likely to fling out every encrusted thing stuffed down within and disowned, learn to say yes to the buried wound, embroider a pattern with my forbidden stitch, my treasure, my fashion in my own fashion, my beast that beats. One of the things that all teachers do is when their students go on and become the poets that they are. I hope that, in my heart, that Jerry Garcia has really fulfilled that particular goal of all teachers, that he go on and carry his legacy and write more poems and I just, it's an honor to have had you as a student, and I wish you all the poems there are in the world. So, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Well, this has been a great afternoon. All my friends in the audience. I'm going to say hello to the people watching on YouTube, or now or in the future. And I also, I believe the man is Eric, and I want us all to give him a big round of applause for keeping the lights on. This is the best sound I've ever heard in this room. I mean it, and the video looked great. The late Richard Beeben used to get up with a liter of, I think it was seltzer water, and he'd tell a whole story about why he does it. And all I'm going to tell you is that, yes, I drink while I read. Get over it. I love Richard. And thank you for recognizing Doug Knott today. That was that was a shock. I don't know if it was the last reading that he did for the VCP, but that was a year ago, and I loved it. So I guess you get that I'm leaving LA, and I've lived here all my life. So I've got 2 poems about LA I want to read to you. This one is called Mid-Century Modern. Air raid sirens screamed into classrooms across Los Angeles. Children all over town practiced duck and cover, squeezing their blue-dressed bodies under plywood desks, unlikely protection from atomic bombs falling on our heads. On my 1-mile walk home from school, blue, green, yellow flags furled over auto dealers showing America's best. Ford Mustangs, Chevy Camaros, and Pontiac GTOs. Trudging along the main thoroughfare, muscle cars cut me off at the crosswalks. When my time came, I drove a yellow VW Bug and dated girls taller than me. Holding hands on Mulholland Drive, watching lights sprinkle the valley below, the thrill of a first kiss came while Nighthawks maneuvered above. Food and dating became synonymous to me. For serious courting, it was Laurie's Prime Rib on Restaurant Row, where we watched Caesar salads prepared at our table. French cuisine at the hard-to-say Tex on Sunset, or first-time sushi in Little Tokyo. Stopping for pastrami at Garduno's, or a French dip at Philippe the Original, and Manuel's burritos at his El Tepeyac Cafe were always a good lunch. Googie architecture, orange and space age, was scattered about the landscape like Ship's Restaurant with its angular roof canopy, sunbeam toasters on the tables. We could not resist doing Jack Nicholson imitations when the waitress brought bread for us to toast. In the suburb of Burbank, Bob's Big Boy had its sherbet motif and a plaque on the booth where the Beatles once ate. Googie coffee shops. The design that inspired the rest was the restaurant where James Dean and Dennis Hopper hung out, where rowdy crowds threw Lenny Bruce through a glass window. where I bought my first legal drink. Looking across the decades, I see my hometown like watching a child grow. 60 years since the Cold War, nuclear threats return like a circle game. Streets crammed with homeless who have no shelter from a falling bomb. LA constructs more buildings, and electric muscle cars cut children off at the curb. Googie's is now just another movie theater with bad parking. I will drive to the burning desert, leaving this microcosm in flux for other generations to watch while I remain mid-century modern forever. Thank you. Dear Los Angeles, it is not a lover's quarrel or loss of faith that takes me from you. The desert yearns, my sense of adventure and a little arthritis are what take me away. Some mornings you are dank and moody and cloudy, but later, when your cold and gray burn off, I see your smile. Foothills rim your basin, radiant in sunshine, freeways crisscross with cars of the proletariat with whom I ride through buildings of commerce for a dip in the peaceful ocean at your peninsula rim. With your most moderate temperament, I never take umbrage when you boil over in the heat of unforgiving sun. Despite haze and smog, I love the fertility of your streets. The creativity of art and food brings a cultural landscape to share. Tacos and sushi, hot dogs and baklava, falafel and samosas, ribs and more tacos. There are days I don't like you, when you become unreasonable and let henchmen harass and beat compadres on the roiling streets. Retaliation makes way with cries on glass-strewn boulevards. Your vexing arteries bring hours of loss and disappointment, torn maps and rhetorical curses. At the end of day, watching the curving roadways of your body sparkle like jewels, I can forgive you. My reach out to the desert confounds me with details of real estate exchange, fears of missing out. The idea of learning new streets and landmarks exasperates me too. Yes, it is time to go. And like the coyote, I will adapt. Once again, thank you all. And I thank the new VCP who will keep it on. We have seasoned members and young members who have longevity ahead of them. So this last poem. So I'm obviously not doing this escape from Los Angeles alone. With my wife Becky. Everyone applaud my wife Becky. She hates it when I do that. This is one last poem I wrote about the time we got married. It's called, which means it's 20 years old. It's called Broomstick Cowboys. And it makes a lot of sense now. Hey there, cowgirl, with your vinyl-fringed vest and red felt hat and plastic six-shooter holstered at your side. Let me be your push-broom companion. I'll wear my straw hat and Tom Mix bandana around my neck. We could be two sidekick pals like Gene Autry with Smiley Barnett, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Quick Draw McGraw and Baba Louie. One might be stronger, one might be smarter, Together, we can take a headfirst dive into the cold, cold river. Or better yet, cowgirl, let me be Roy Rogers to your Dale Evans in a crayon cactus romance, singing into the sunset. Thank you.
And all of our poets.
Thank you so much.
Jerry, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to the new directors of VCP. We look forward to the work you're going to be doing. Feel free to hang out. We have books for sale from all of our poets. I'm sure they'd be willing to sign them. We have a little reception outside, so feel free to hang around for a little while. Thanks so much.